Welcome to Friday Night Likes, Episode 2. I am your host, Chris Webb, and in this weekly show, we discuss excellence in toy photography. So you can learn more about composition, lighting, articulation, and technical skills that will help make you a better toy photographer. I am so excited about this show. I've got some truly wonderful images to show you. And there's one especially I'm going to spend a little bit of time on because it is just so special. When I saw this week, it literally stopped me in my tracks because there's a lot of layers to it. And you're going to learn a hell of a lot from this image when I show it to you and talk you through what's going on. So let's get straight into it. First is this wonderful image by Mad Lion Presents 42. I believe the gentleman's name is Measle. I often see him in articulated comic book art. He does the most incredible work with composition. This is not even my favorite shot of his. Go check out his work, Mad Lion Presents 42. But it's an excellent one to talk about because of composition. And what I love about the shot is how much character he's able to draw out of primarily this Enchantress figure here. I mean, just stunning work. And what this shows you is how much you can communicate just through the pose of your figures. And he's really taking advantage of the face sculpt on this figure because she's got a kind of cheeky smirk to her face and it suits what he's done with this perfectly. It's a big problem with toy photography, especially hot toy stuff, because there's no one really doing better work with figures than Hot Toys in terms of detail. But the looks are very monotone. So with other toy lines, it's I guess harder to tell what the expressions are on smaller scale figures. But in this case, Marvel have done a great job with this figure, just giving a little bit of character to the face, which Mad Lion here has taken brilliant advantage of. Now the monster has no expression, but just through the posing in this photo, it tells you so much about the relationship between these two characters, because the way she's balanced on him, the way she's completely relaxed, he wouldn't dare flick her off or let her fall. The little hand gesture there with her sort of fingers flicking out, and the way her feet are kicked up at the back, crossed over. She's relaxed. She's perfectly relaxed. And so that tells you he's under her control or her friend, and brilliant. Just absolutely brilliant work. Notice the crop. What you've got here is her body's completely within the frame, but you're only seeing him really from the neck upwards. So it's cropped right around his neck. And this is a brilliant choice because what a lot of people would do is they would probably give a full shot of the creature's whole body, because undoubtedly this is a big figure. It probably looks great, and you look at it and you think, wow, I really want to take a photo of this. But this is really clever, reserved work, because whenever you have something big, the best way to show off its size is to crop it. I see a lot of people sort of give commentary on photos and they say things like, oh, you've cropped this ship or this person or this character. And in a lot of cases, they're completely wrong, because what the cropping does is it highlights the size. Think about the first frame in Star Wars Episode 4, A New Hope. You have that Tantive 4 ship come across the screen with the laser fire coming into it, and you are obviously aware that something is approaching that's going to also come into frame, that's firing at it. But then what you have, and think, it's 1977, there's no internet, there's no CGI. Then what comes into frame is this huge Star Destroyer. And when you look at it, it's cropped, because what the filmmakers are doing is they're trying to show you how big this thing is. It's so big, it doesn't even fit in the frame. So by taking a shot like this and cropping this character, it makes you believe he's huge. Obviously, the size of him compared to her also helps with that, and the angle helps with that, because by shooting this underneath, he's closer to the lens than she is. So it's gonna show off his size more than hers. Again, a lot of people would shoot this from the top. It's a completely different photo. And the balance here is great as well, because you've got this great counterpoint between her up the top, and these, I guess, leading lines that take you, I guess, from the top right diagonally across and kind of diagonally straight down. It's a brilliant, brilliant composition. So that's the first one. Next one, by London Calling 80. Very, very simple punch shot. You see a lot of people attempt this. I've done one myself, I think, with Harley Quinn and Batgirl, and it's a pretty easy shot to pull off. You want the punch connecting or going slightly past, as it's not in this case, and obviously the character's face has got to be turned away from the punch, and you want them stumbling, falling over, all of which is pretty much going on here. But there's one thing that separates this shot, which should be pretty obvious from normal punch shots, and that's simply the presence of this mask that is popping off his face. Without that there, this is a completely different shot. So I don't know how he's got that in, whether it's suspended, photoshopped, or whatever, but if you imagine this photo without the mask popping off, you probably wouldn't pay as much attention to this as with it there, because what it does is it communicates energy. It communicates the fact that that fist has connected with such force that it's popped his mask right off. So a very, very clever trick there. If you want to kind of communicate motion and reaction to force, is to think about what direction things are going to travel in and move in when things collide, and try and work in things like this in your scenes to just indicate that something has been hit and hit hard. So simple shot, but very effective. Next up, this popped up in my feed by Agent Webhead and just put a smile on my face. I mean, whether you are on board with the subject matter of, I guess, this little vignette here or not, the thing I like about this is there's a story. There's far too much photography that's just, here's a figure, nicely lit, here's another figure, nicely lit. Everyone's doing it. I'm certainly not immune from that myself, but what Agent Webhead's done here is he sat down and thought about a little story. He's come up with an idea, and then he's figured out just these 6 panels to communicate that little story quite simply, carried it out, and the result is you follow the panels and you have a reaction at the end. You might sort of smirk, laugh, you might think groan, but the whole point with what we do as artists is trying to create a reaction. And so, yeah, this put a smile on my face. Good to see a little bit of story. Even though it's not a single frame, I'll talk more about story in the weeks ahead and how you do that better in a single shot. But I like this because of the thought put behind it. Even simple things like the fact that the shot of The Rock there and Stone Cold Steve Austin, he's reused the same shot in the 4th frame, but it's just zoomed in, so it's sort of taking your focus more on them being, I guess, frozen looking at Black Widow, or what they think is Black Widow here. So yeah, nice little shot. 4th up, Lego End Design. My God, I only found this guy's portfolio this week. I could literally just make an episode with pretty much every photo in his account. The work is so good. Just go and check this guy out on Instagram if you haven't seen his work. It's absolutely incredible. I think there's a fair amount of Photoshop post-processing going on, which I'm well in favor of. And I picked this one out because I love what this does with complementary colors. So if you look on the right of screen here, what I've just added in is a little color wheel. And you can see you've got purple down the bottom of the color wheel and kind of yellow, orange up the top, which is the palette he's used in the picture here. So he's got some kind of LED, I think, pretty clearly in shot there, which is casting a yellow light. Whether it created the sort of orange hue as well that's spilling on the snow there and his body in shot is hard to tell. And then the shadows, he's got this purple tone in. A lot of people do blue or kind of teal in the shadows, which you'll see a lot in my shots. But the, I guess, decision to move to purple is brilliant because it completely aligns with this complementary color scheme, which is why this is such a good shot. Composition through color. This is a very, very limited palette. There's not really anything else going on here. You've got a bit of blue in the bokeh up the top there, but that's fine. It's a really, really good exercise to just try and constrain yourself with the color palette in your photography. And that's going to be a lot about looking at the figure you choose and then thinking about their surroundings and what lighting you can play with to work with just a couple of colors. Go and look at the work of Adam Hughes, who did a lot of comic covers for DC, I think still does. All his covers, all his artwork are either complementary colors or a triadic color scheme, and they will give you great ideas for how you can just limit color in your composition. It's hard to pull off, and you really, really need to use Photoshop to accentuate it and, I guess, force areas of color into the hues you want. But you can get some very, very effective results, as we can see here. Okay, last shot. This is by Fabio. I'm going to make a complete hash of attempting to pronounce his Instagram handle. I think it might be Palecoo1, Palecoo1. Hopefully someone will correct me. This I found off of the One Cam's website, who was featured last week. He ran a competition, and this was the winning shot, and very, very well deserved. This is an absolutely incredible piece of work. There's so much to talk about. We're actually going to spend a little bit of time on this, and I think it's worth it. I actually want to make these shows a little bit on the short side, but I think whilst there's good things to talk about, I'm not too fussed about how long things run, and in the case of this is worthy of discussion. So while I've been talking, you're obviously looking at the shot. There's a number of things you can talk about, and I could talk about the diorama, I could talk about the posing, where things are placed, accessories, I could talk about the lighting, I could talk about the scene setup and little details like the blood on the floor, but all I'm going to talk about really is the composition. A good deal of my week is spent sifting through toy photography. I'm going through groups and just quickly consuming a lot of images to see what other people are doing, get inspiration. When you look at as much as I do, and I know a lot of you guys do as well, you notice themes in terms of what picks up popularity. So things like Lego gets a lot of likes, Spider-Man always gets a lot of likes. There's something about those characters and toys that do well. But then when you see a good shot, there's various reasons, there's various patterns I've picked up on that make people react to a photo and give it appreciation. Some of those reasons, a lot of people don't know why they're doing it. A cool shot's a cool shot. We've all seen them. We've all seen someone pull something off where we think, hey, I wish I'd done that. But in this case, I think this is one of these beautiful examples where people who don't really know about composition with photography will respond to this photo and really, really like it, but they don't actually know why. And I'm going to explain why. With photography, there's a concept we talk about called figure to ground. And this is all about making sure that your subject is the thing you want to draw your viewer's eye to, is the thing with the highest point of contrast in the scene. So what has got the highest point of contrast in this scene? Obviously, it's Solid Snake in the middle here. I'm just going to zoom into this because I want to be able to show you things in this with a bit more detail. So I've cropped into the photo here a little. Apologies for that. I think you'll forgive me when you see what comes next. You've got three characters on screen. Obviously, the guy on the floor here, you can't see his head. But one of the things you can do with your photography to check if you've got a good composition is look at it in black and white. So if you're shooting on a proper camera and you think you've got a good composition, just get your phone out, stick it next to your main camera and just pop off a shot. On most cameras today, you've got picture filters where you'll easily be able to see the photo in black and white. Here's this photo in black and white. Now the question is, does this still work? If it doesn't work in black and white, chances are it's not going to work in color. It's a very, very good test to run if you've got a lot of busy stuff going on screen, because what happens is you work on a piece and get used to it and things can get very busy and your eyes relax and get used to what you're seeing, but then you can end up with photos where when you share them, people don't quite react to them in the way you'd hope. If you quickly do this black and white test, you'll see whether your photo still makes sense. Now, having converted Fabio's photo to black and white, does this photo still make sense? Of course it does. What is the point of highest contrast? Solid Snake. He's got black against the white of the window. So the way he set up the light coming through, so it hits him just slightly on the cheek, the side to light him up, but then more importantly illuminates the back wall, is brilliant because it creates this point of contrast, which is one of the things that draw your eye in to his character. The other thing you want to do with your photos to check composition is do what's called the squint test, which is simply squint your eyes so the photo goes blurry, and does it still make sense? So here's the photo again, blurred out. What's the highest point of contrast? You can't really see what's going on, but you can tell the highest point of contrast is still Solid Snake and the light from the window behind it. If this was the first frame you'd seen and you'd never seen this photo before, it'd probably take you some time to figure out what the room is, whether these are indeed people, but you'd probably quickly be able to tell there's a body here right in the center. So this is really, really masterful use of lighting and composition. But that's not all we've got, because the other thing is the leading line. So the angle this is shot up right in the kind of center of the room has all these leading lines which draw your eye in through the scene, again to Snake in the middle. You've got the lines of the wall, the tiles on the floor, the angle of the soldier's leg here. It's very, very clear what you should be looking at. Another thing with composition is repeating patterns and things that become a, I guess, motif for the photo. What you see in abundance in this photo is triangles everywhere. So there's these little triangles all over the scene that create, I guess, a visual rhythm throughout. And then what you end up with is a really, really special piece of work. Work like this makes me really, really happy, because it's work like this that's going to elevate toy photography as a genre to a higher level where it's taken more seriously outside of, the space we all play in. Work like this is going to make someone who sees this picture for the first time want to be a better photographer. It's going to make them pick up their camera and work on their craft. Really, really exquisite work. I am very, very happy to end on this one this week. So that's it for episode number 2. Seem to be going longer and longer each week, which isn't good, but I'm definitely going to try and bring it in under 10 minutes next week. If you have feedback, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Drop me a comment on YouTube in the comments below. I will make sure to get back to each and every single one of you. I'll be here same time, same place next Friday. You can follow along the show and see previous episodes if you head to FridayNightLikes.com. Thanks for watching. See you next week. Head to ToyShooter.com to join our newsletter and get my free guide to toy photography. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel on YouTube using the link below. When you subscribe, look for this option to be notified whenever we upload new tutorials. Otherwise, videos will probably get lost in your feed here on YouTube. To see my work on Instagram, you can follow our account at instagram.com/WeShootToys, where you'll also find some exclusive behind-the-scenes videos. You can also get regular news and updates from our Facebook page at facebook.com/ToyShooter. As with YouTube, you can get notified whenever I upload news or photos by clicking on that like button arrow, then selecting all notifications. You can always change this later if I'm posting more cool stuff than you can handle. Here are all those links again. See you next time.